Hello, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Dr. Sarah Jane. And Sarah Jane is a spinal and energetic chiropractor. She is the founder of Enlightened Healing, of which she has two locations, one in Armidale, where I used to have the privilege to work, and also a brand new clinic in Callista. She has a very long list of bachelor degrees, including a major in psychology, health science, and applied clinical science. She is a graduate of humanistic Buddhism. She's a certified yoga and meditation teacher, holistic counselor, and energy facilitator. And one thing I love about Sarah Jane is she is very active in the community. Apart from just community events, of which I've had the pleasure of going to, she also works with Indigenous communities and people in need. She has a boundless knowledge of mind, body, and energetic medicine, which is one of the reasons I really wanted to have her on today. So let's begin. Okay, welcome, Sarah Jane. Firstly, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. You've been such an inspiration in my life. You've all got such a powerful energy, and I've really admired the way that you have run your business and the work you do. I've actually had the pleasure of being in Enlightened and practicing there for a little while when I was back in Melbourne, and I've had treatments from you. But all around, you're just such a joy. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually really excited because, I think, we haven't caught up in a while as well, but just the kind of conversations that we usually have, I'm just looking forward to sharing with your listeners and, yeah, of course, seeing you and hearing you because it's been a while.
It has been a while, and I know that you're going to have so much to share with everyone who listens. So I think it's going to be a really great time and very informative, I'm sure. So for the listeners that aren't familiar with what network chiropractic is, because I know for myself, it's very different to just going to a standard chiropractor. I'd love for you to share with us how it works. I've seen all the little videos on your Instagram with the bodies moving that people might like to go and check out at one point. But I'd love you just to share a little bit of light on what you do.
Yeah, look, it's not the typical or standard approach to chiropractic, that's for sure. We, a lot of the time, working with the energetic field or using very gentle, light touches to release tension or, I guess, resistance within the nervous system. So this is still why it's a chiropractic technique. We are still working with the spine and the brain. We're just working with it in a way that's not manipulative in the sense of cracking bones or working in a way where we're trying to move a vertebra as such and back into place, which is, I guess, kind of the old school way of chiropractic. And we don't just focus on pain, which I think is an important difference as well. A lot of people, when they normally see a chiropractor, are going for possibly back pain or neck pain, whereas as network spinal chiropractors, we work in a way which is a lot more holistic and integrative, and we look at the person from a spiritual aspect and a soul aspect, as well as physical, emotional, mental, all of those things. But we really try to connect all the parts of the human being and work with the energetic field to release tension in a way that the body is doing it itself, rather than a practitioner manipulating the spine in a certain way to go back to a certain place that's more optimal. We work with the body and allow the body's innate wisdom to move it itself. And that's why in those videos you see those people making all these strange movements and sounds. These are just spontaneous releases that people are doing. And it's an automatic release, just like, a knee reflex or your heart beating, or if you cut yourself, your body heals that cut. It's that same energy that's working with releasing this resistance within the system. And that's why it's such a privilege to work with. But also, I guess it's utilized in a way that can also be seen as, working with clients with trauma, anxiety, depression, things where people are, wanting to work at the root cause and not necessarily trying to fix something. We're rebuilding, we're transforming, and allowing people to step into their power and be aligned, not just physically and emotionally, but spiritually and with their soul.
So I was really interested in what you were saying about alignment. And it's almost like that the body actually just aligns itself spontaneously, that the body
Mm,
really has its own inner wisdom, that you just actually facilitate that
yeah.
change. And would you say that it's you almost align physically and that then creates alignment in your clients' lives through moving them energetically, and then they see results out in their personal life and what's going on in their world?
Yeah, look, for me, you can access someone's field either in a physical way, a mental, emotional way, or in a personal soul kind of way. So it's not just the physical we are changing, but we are working with the nervous system and the storage of the nervous system. So, if I'm not sure if some of your listeners are familiar with, books such as like The Body Keeps the Score or somatics in the sense of like Peter Levine's work, and this idea and notion that our bodies store what we've gone through in our lives. They store all our experiences, and we work with the field almost like it's a fingerprint that's unique to the person, but almost like a map of what that person has gone through in this current life. Some might even say previous lifetimes, but also what they're not necessarily just destined to do, but what their soul yearns to do in this life form. So sometimes we're working with the physical aspect. So we are touching certain vertebra or certain points in the actual spine to release the tension. And we're doing it either in a really light way or in a way that's even off the body, and so in different energetic fields of that person's blueprint. And so by, I guess, aligning and releasing what no longer serves that person. So a lot of our clients are either stuck in the past or stuck in the future, and very similar to kind of a meditation practice, we're trying to bring them into the present moment. And in order to be aligned and be present, there has to be a change in the body of what's holding them back from that level. And so that's what's releasing. And sometimes you'll see people releasing in a different way, and that means it's different things that's actually moving through the body. So sometimes it is an emotional trauma. Sometimes you'll see people crying. Sometimes you'll see people screaming, which might be, an anger or a grief response. Sometimes it's repression. Sometimes people don't even know what they're releasing. Sometimes it can be a physical aspect as well. There are network chiros who do kind of focus on that neck pain and back pain kind of notion still. But for me, my clients is more emotional and spiritual aspects. And yeah, it's amazing to see the difference. It's just like, yoga or a meditation practice. When you are connecting to yourself back again and connecting to something larger than yourself, it's almost like the choices you make just become different in your life. They just become more aligned because your state of consciousness has changed. So ultimately what we're changing is states of consciousness.
Okay, so you're really coming from a much more energetic perspective and really that whole person. So it's not just literally aligning physically, but you're really coming and treating on every single different level. And I imagine that really comes through conversation with your client at the start, which I know I've
Mm.
experienced with you, and then just having that total body approach. And also, I imagine what actually happens when you actually get them on the table as well. Does that do
Mm.
you actually feel the energy of what's going on with them at that point?
Yeah, so every layer is different, and I just work with whatever layer is presenting at the time. And that layer may feel different or have a different sensation to it depending on what its resonance is related to. So if it's related to, say, an anger or resentment or something like that, it's going to feel far more dense. If it's related to something where they've had it could be anything like joy in their lives. You can also feel that in the field as well. But we kind of work in the areas that are working well. And so what I try to do is I try to find where the most energy richness areas are. So where they are aligned already, and I feed more energy into those areas. And as a result, the body then alters the other areas. Rather than me trying to feel blockages or stagnation or resistance, I will go to the areas that have ease and welcoming energy already to them, and already where they are in alignment. By feeding more into that, the body can then unwind the resistance and tension in those other areas. So it's kind of a different approach in that regard as well.
I love that. I actually didn't know that at all, that you really focused on that. And I think that's such a beautiful way of coming from it. It's like, it's almost like positive psychology, isn't it? Like working with what's going well rather than working what's not going well, and
Yeah.
continuing to build that rather than focusing on what's not going so right, that actually naturally changes.
Yeah, definitely, because the body's done it for a reason, So I really honor that idea that if the body has gone into protective mode or has misaligned or created tension in fascia or connective tissue or whatever it might be, it's done that for a purpose. Everything in the body is purposeful. It's not up to me to alter that. But what is up to me is to facilitate the safety and the context for the person on the table. So that could be something that they're protecting themselves from that happened, 20 years ago. We don't need to hold on to that still in the body. So we're giving the body permission to create ease in those areas again, still while learning from that experience, but no longer in that time warp where it happened, where they feel as though it's happened yesterday rather than 20 years ago. We bring context and safety to the body, and then the body's able to regulate, emotions are able to regulate, and that person's able to step into the present moment.
Yeah, beautiful. And obviously there's confidentiality, but what kind of transformations have you seen in your clients' lives? Like, can you give any specific examples?
Oh, there's been so many. We've had, all different things. We've had things from physical aspects where, for example, clients have gone down the traditional route and they couldn't find anything necessarily wrong with the client. They've had all these scans, they've had all these blood tests, they've had all these things, and they're just being told everything's fine, everything's normal. So a lot of the time, clients will then try something a bit different or alternative, and they might come and see us, and we can feel tension in other areas of their body that maybe the Western realm can't necessarily explain yet with the tools that we have. So we have people from all sorts of physical symptoms, from like gut issues to sleep issues to, psychogenic things, especially like fibromyalgia or psychogenic seizures, things like that are trauma related as well. We really have a great response in that regard too. Definitely pain as well, if the pain is related to psychological buildup in the person's system as well. We seem to think that pain can only come from physical level, whereas in fact, it takes a lot of layering of tension building and building to possibly get that physical pain, but it's come from an emotional aspect. So we get a lot of great results in that regard too, but just people feeling calmer, people feeling more connected to themselves, people, quitting jobs that they know haven't been right for them for 10 years, people changing friendships or changing relationships, or even just enhancing what they already have and changing their perspective on these things possibly instead. So it becomes much more of a life altering alignment rather than just what they come for initially, definitely. And we can't exactly say what changes people are going to have. It's unique to the individual, but yeah, it's a beautiful practice, and a lot of people come just for lifestyle reasons. They come because it's part of their self-care routine. It's part of their, like brushing their teeth or going to a yoga class or going to a meditation class or whatever. It becomes part of their spiritual hygiene to release the tension that they're building, especially if they've had a challenging week at work or challenging relationship things come up. They might come and then they get to release it on the table, and it gives them permission to sort through that stuff in a different way and have the support and guidance of the practitioner. And it's quite a cathartic feeling as well when you're releasing it physically, emotionally, and mentally through the body, and energetically. It's a feeling that people tend to feel is like a remembering of this movement. It's quite strange. It feels so natural, yet a lot of people didn't know that we could do it.
Yeah, it feels like a real clearing and giving permission for ourselves just to release what we're holding, but also to bring in changes in our own lives as well.
Definitely.
I actually heard you mention on another podcast that in general that your clients say that in general, they want to be happy and peaceful.
Mm,
And I find that with my own clients, it's a little bit like
mm.
like a meta practice, like love and kindness, like everyone wants to almost be happy and well. But
Mm,
most of the time, people look for what's going on the outside to change, where it's what happens on the inside that actually really shapes us. But
mm,
where most people are looking outside, that if the outside shifts, well, then I'll be happy. So I
mm.
was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit and about how people can begin to find that internal happiness and peace.
Yeah, well, I think most people get to a point where they realize that the external doesn't work. They've done all the things on their checklist that they've been told is supposed to make you be a happy, successful human from our Western social construct, and they do the things or don't do the things, and they're still not happy. But it's that whole idea of consumerism, and if we get more and be more and have more, then we'll be happier. And it's really only a Western philosophy that that's the case. And that's why most Westerners probably are the most unhappy in the world out of a lot of other cultures. We're in a very privileged society where we're having more and have more access to things that we've never had before in lifetimes. And it's still we're probably less connected to ourselves and others than we've ever been. And so when you do get to see other cultures, when I've traveled around the world and I've traveled through the East and Southeast quite a lot, you just see people so happy with so little. And they're genuinely happy, not just like our idea of social media happy, like genuinely happy people, and they're happy because they don't necessarily have much. They have all their needs met in terms of basic survival and food and shelter and safety, but they're happy because they're connected to the people around them. They're happy because they know themselves, they know the people around them, they have love, they have true connection and true, I guess that's where we lose it in the West. We have a lot of lost connections, whereas they don't want for anything. They go internal. They are happy in the present. They're not always future focused or goal focused. It becomes a simple life. And I think a lot of us say we want to be happy and peaceful, but we don't really kind of take steps that are congruent with what actually that means. And I think that's probably something that we all need to be aware of, and this work kind of helps connect the dots of that a little bit more and get people to look at themselves and examine themselves and why they are the way they are and why they do what they do, and bring a little bit more of sense to that so that they can become the person that they actually want to be and who they are before they were told to be who they are, and build quality connections, not necessarily quantity, and maybe have a job that's purposeful. Maybe it doesn't earn as much money, but they're bringing purpose and meaning into their life, where our priorities need to alter internally before the external will match, and that's something that I think most of us are working on.
Absolutely. I did quite a bit of study into happiness not so long ago, and basically once our basic needs are met, anything above that doesn't necessarily make us happy once we've had that basic need. And I love that you really compared that to what you saw, in Asian culture. They do live a lot more simply, and we have we've lost our compass in some ways, I think, in the West. And so coming back and finding that and learning about what makes us happy and learning what gives us a sense of peace and connecting to that, both ourselves, connecting to ourselves. I think we've lost that connection with ourselves so much, but also the connections around us. I think even like these last few years have made it even worse, I think, because we've lost even more connection. But beginning to be able to bring that back is just so important.
It really is, and I think I can't remember the study, but there's some study where they've realised something. Once you earn over 70,000 or something like that, there's actually no alteration in happiness. So you just have to look at what we perceive to be successful, famous celebrities. They should be happy. They have everything, and they're not happy because they have everything. It doesn't work that way. We think we have this false idea that once we have everything we want, or we are everything we need to be accepted, then happiness follows. And it's really about getting to know who you are and getting to know yourself and what you enjoy, and not just becoming a lawyer because that's what you think you should do, or getting married at 29 because who knows what might happen if you're 39 and single and not married. Or even though we have come a long way, there's still a lot of these social constructs where if you're not doing the norm, you're not doing it right, and but not many people are actually happy. And so for me, I don't look at success as what people have. I look at success from how much joy the person has, how much peace the person has in their life. That to me is the successful person. So you have to really kind of delve into what you think makes happiness, I guess, real for you. And yeah, that's why I was so interested into Buddhist culture and Hindu culture and all that idea of having faith and beliefs in something larger than yourself and connection to something larger than yourself, but also the ability to have this self-inquiry that actually, for me, helped me be more of who I am on this planet.
So, Sarah Jane, if you don't mind getting a little more personal, I'd love to know what you've had to heal in your life and how you've gone about doing that.
Oh, lots of things. How much time do you have? Look, I've had a very interesting life, a very colourful tapestry of life, with a lot of experiences on all different levels that I think have helped alter me in a way that brings me closer to who I'm meant to be. I'm very comfortable in who I am. I'm very happy in who I am. And that hasn't come easily overnight either. There's been a lot of things that I have gone through in life, from being diagnosed with PTSD and CPTSD and ADD and OCD, and I had fibromyalgia at one point and psychogenic seizures at one point, and a lot of different personal traumas that have happened in my life to alter my physiology, my system, and also myself emotionally and mentally and physically in the end, which is why I learned so much about the body and somatics. And I was doing all this amazing talk therapy. My first degree was psychology and philosophy. And then I went back and studied applied science and clinical science in terms of my chiropractic. But I always had a large interest in, the human brain, the humans, and why they are the way that they are. And so psychology really helped me encapsulate that. But it also, I was seeing my psychologist and studying psychology, and I was learning so much rationally, and I understood a lot more from that side of my brain, but things weren't changing within my system still. It helped me bring story and words, and that helped with my healing. But for me, there needed to be more, which is why I started going down the transpersonal psychotherapy kind of route, where they brought in, Joseph Campbell's work, A Hero's Journey, and this idea of like a dark night of the soul. And because I did go through a lot in my life, and and that's just touching on the surface. There's been a lot more in regards to that. But for me, I've used every experience that could be considered negative or heart-wrenching and soul-changing experiences to rebuild myself in a way that's closer to who I really am and who I want to be. And I think that's what we have to do in life. We have to have less expectations of how we think life should be, and be happy with how it is, and trust that it has happened not necessarily for a reason, in the sense that everything's great and you're only going to have positive things that happen. I don't believe that. But I do believe that the things that we might perceive to be bad can sometimes really ultimately possibly have a greater aspect of, connecting to consciousness within ourselves, or connecting to something larger than who we are, that doesn't get given to you unless you have gone to the depths of the mud, and you do have to delve deep into those aspects to get access to, I believe, the beauty of happiness and joy and real life in terms of a meaningful and purposeful life. And for me, it's changed over the years. We change, life changes. And it's become a lot more simpler now that I've gotten a bit older, just simple pleasures for me. Spending time with people I care about, telling people I care about that I do care about them, having cups of tea, close friends, close family, just enjoying a really peaceful, non-dramatic life, and trying to learn the best I can from experiences. And I'm sure you've heard that story of what's good or bad, in terms of that Zen story of when this man's son broke his leg off a horse, and everyone in the village came around and said, oh no, like that's so bad that he broke his leg. And then he said, well, it might be good or bad. And then the next week or so, that he was supposed to be sent to war because the country was going to war, and he didn't have to go because he had broken legs. And people are like, oh wow, that's so amazing. And it's this idea that we label something as good or bad, when in fact we actually don't know whether it will be. And so for me, I try to take things in a way that's without that labeling, and just come to that idea of acceptance, and also that life sometimes isn't fair, and life doesn't always work out with butterflies and rainbows, but that doesn't mean that life's not beautiful still.
Yeah, it's always been my experience. If I look back on my own life, very similar to you, I've had a lot of things happen, and I look back at them all, and there've been those pivot points. There've been the things that have actually changed and created what I have in my life now. Like I wouldn't be where I was without having to go to those depths. So yeah, you could look at it at the time as, this is not pleasant, this is heartbreaking, this is incredibly difficult. However, that has actually given me what I have today, and I wouldn't have it without it.
No.
And I love that story of and really taking the labels out. I haven't heard of it described quite that way, of taking good or bad out of it. And I really enjoyed that little story, to be able to step back. I've always loved the saying, and you may have heard of this too, that everything is here for us. Good, the bad, it's all there. It's all, and again, even if you take the labels out, we're talking about that, but just sort of seeing everything that comes in our life as being some part of our growth and our learning. That's how we move forward. That's how we go to the depths, and we learn what we need to do. We learn what makes us happy, and then we also can come back to those simple pleasures, like what you said. I was thinking back to when I was in my mid to late 20s, and I was so content. I was actually very happy in my life, but I thought that was boring at the time. I needed to start doing the action, and then it's like, yeah, that doesn't really make you so happy either.
We need balance,
We need balance, yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But no one in this field of work really has had a simple or easy kind of life. That's why we're in this realm. And we all have a story, and I think we just forget. I think a lot of it has to do with childhood as well, where we've got these expectations of how we think life's just going to be this easy, thing. Like you just grow up, you have a family, you have kids, and then and when you've not really gone down that path, you start to kind of examine things in a different way, and examine what your path is, and not just what everyone else's path is. And I do believe that souls do have different reincarnations here on this earth, and my soul has a different experience to other people's. Well, it's unique to me, and so is yours, and so is everyone's. And I just have this I guess I don't know if it's belief or what it is, but this idea that I trust that.
Yeah,
I trust that.
Absolutely. I've always had the belief that we come here really for a bigger purpose, that almost like it's designed before we come in. And some of us
has to be
necessarily designed for meant to be here for a conventional life.
No,
And
I
even
don't know what I signed, but I definitely didn't sign the conventional life thing. I don't know. I don't know what I did, but I definitely did not sign that contract, let me tell you. And neither did you.
I certainly didn't. I didn't. I had a great analogy actually that was before you come onto the earth. It's like you're all waiting at a bus stop. And at the bus stop, you make these agreements with each other about what you're going to go through and who's going to be that person that, you know, really triggers you. It's like, I really want to learn about growth and, you know,
Oh.
freedom and independence. So who can help me with that? And people go, no, I don't want to help you. I don't want to help you with that. And then go, please, you know, and then they go, oh, okay. And then you sign the paper, you get on the bus and off you go.
Yeah, look, I feel that, and you know, I've had a lot of intense experiences in a short term. I'm only almost 36, so I feel like I've had a lot of learnings. Probably my biggest one was when my mum got sick very quickly. So she's had a very rare brain disease, and within 24 hours was in a coma for almost 4 months, and she's brain damaged now. She's still with us, but she is a very different person, and her quality of life is very limited compared to who she was before. But that experience taught me a lot as well, in terms of, you know, we aren't here forever, and the people we love aren't here forever, and life can change in so quickly. And so for me, I really haven't taken much for granted since then. I really think every day is precious, and you know, and that doesn't mean life is easy. You know, life can still be really painful for me and for lots of people. But I've got a deeper sense of just wanting to do what I want to do in this life. And if I want to go somewhere, I'm going. If I want to do something, I do it. If I don't, I don't. Whereas before, you know, I had a different perspective on that. And so I think, you know, life has our greatest teachers associated with our hardest events sometimes. And that's not to say that you only learn from challenging events, but for me, my favorite people that I've encountered in this earth are people who have gone through depths of darkness that are just unbelievable and relentless, you know. And those people are my favorite people, because it's like you look at them and you see that you just recognize each other. You just recognize each other. And for me, those are the people I like to surround myself with.
Yeah. Actually, you mentioned something within that, and I'd be interested to know your opinion, which is really this juxtaposition of finding joy even when we're in a challenge or on a healing journey, because it's like the layers of an onion, really, isn't it? Things are always rising to the surface if we're paying attention, so that we can continue to grow. So how do you see those things existing simultaneously?
Well, everything does, doesn't it? You know, it's the duality of nature. You know, you can feel more than one thing at once as well. So you can actually feel sad but happy. It's I think we're kind of taught that you only are one thing or the other, but life's not black and white. We aren't black and white. We're so intricate. You know, so we don't have to be just one thing or feel one thing or do one thing. We can be far more expansive than that. And I think it's a disservice to who we are as human beings and our capabilities and our wisdom within us to think that we can only fit in these perfect little constructed boxes that we have decided that we should be. And life just doesn't work that way. And so sometimes it's a perspective change, and you've got to look at things and think, well, you know, maybe this hasn't gone the way I want it to be, or how I expected it to be, or this hurts and this is painful. But, you know, using my mum as an example, I still had, you know, 68 years with my mother that a lot of people don't get. And that's not to paint this toxic positivity or gratefulness idea on it. It's not. But I got 68 years with my best friend. That's a long time. Not everyone gets that. So as much as it's a painful thing that I got 68 years and not, you know, what I would have liked, which is 100 years, when I really examined it, the idea of it, I never would have been ready for my mum to go. I never would have been ready for it. And when I say go, the person I knew go. And it's something that we just have to realize, that we are so significant yet insignificant all at the same time. And that's just another duality of life.
Yeah. It's that real thing. You said it earlier too, that everything can change in an instant, and being available to the present moment and recognizing that you did have this incredible time with your mom. And it's not painting that like everything has to be joy all the time, but how beautiful that you actually had that experience, and that you can take that with you into the future. And I'm sure everything, not only that you learned through her going through what she's gone through, but also what you actually learned from her to begin with as well.
Yeah. And you know, for me, it may be a bit of a coping mechanism to a degree, but for me to get through that grieving process, I had to eventually look at the beauty in it. Because I didn't, there's a choice. I didn't want to be sad and be miserable. And there's a lot of things that I could have been sad and miserable in my life for a very long time. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it's not in my nature. It goes against who I am and who I want to be. And so I stayed with those processes. I allowed them to come through me and move through it. And you know, sometimes it's still a daily thing. Sometimes there are triggering moments that occur, or, you know, I'll see a mother and daughter holding hands down the street and it will bring something up within me. But I look at that and I examine that, and I don't just push it down or push it away. It's all opportunity. It's all opportunity. It's all teachings. And, you know, I love to learn. I've studied, you know, 12 years of my life at university. I love to learn. There's only the idea where it's painful that I don't like to learn. And I think that's what would I be as a human being if I only ever experienced joy all the time? It would be pointless. That's not the experience. And so you can't sign up for just one thing. You've got to sign up for the whole experience. And for me, with the kind of human being that I've aspired to be, those people have gone through really challenging things. And so I just had to look for other people around me that, you know, whether it was people I knew or didn't know, as role models to help me get through that time, and do so with grace. You know, there's a way to handle these things where it's an opportunity to better who you are and better yourself. And that's what I believe my mum would have wanted, and I believe that I wanted for myself, more importantly.
You said something key there, which I think is really important, which is the word choice. We have a choice with how we move forward in our lives when these really difficult periods happen to us. Do we stay in the mud? And we do actually have to process it. Like, it's really important that we sit with our feelings and not just bypass it and push it away, and which obviously gets really stored down in our system, but also the choice to grow and to learn and to move forward with it. And like you say, your mum would have wanted you to be happy and to be positive and feel, you know, feeling good as you go forward, but also to take those lessons that you have learned throughout, you know, any difficult period in your life, and to keep going. And I think that's something that we can begin to recognize, well, as practitioners, or anybody, anybody, that we have that ability to be going through a difficult period, but we can also choose to find happiness and joy and peace within it, or at least after a period of time.
It's so important. And that's, you know, I did my postgraduate studies in Buddhism, and you know, I really admire the Buddhist, I guess, approach to happiness and approach to challenging things. And for me, it just helped me make sense and make meaning out of some things that were hard. And with the kind of work that I do as well, I can't do what I do and facilitate what I do for others and not have experienced a lot of what they have gone through, a lot of what people have gone through. And a lot of the time, the clients that I get are reflections of who I am, and who I've been and who I'm becoming. But yeah, so my clients are just reflections of parts of me. And a lot of the time I feel like I can connect to them so well, or they feel connected to me so instantly, because there's an understanding of what that is, of what that pain is. And so with what I facilitate, it had to be a colourful life.
Absolutely. I totally resonate with that as well. Like, to be able to meet your clients where they're at, we have to have had some degree of experience, because we need to come from a place of having gone through it ourselves. And I guess that's the wisdom that comes through having gone through challenge and difficulty.
Yeah. And you know, it's, for me, a lot of it was expectation that life should be a certain way. And once I let go of that, my life just became easier. But yeah, I had a lot of insight from, I did a lot of Vipassanas when I was going through this challenging time. I really had a dedicated meditation practice. Yoga was a huge part of my life. All these other things. And the work that I do has been a huge part of my healing journey, which is one of the reasons I wanted to study to become the kind of chiropractor that I am, because the healing that I have received from it has been life-changing, and I wanted to be able to change other people's lives in that way.
Yeah. That reminds me, I saw in your bio that you typed into a job search the word meaningful. You were looking for what you wanted to do in your life. I loved that. That was just so great.
How corny is that?
But hey, why not? Meaningful.
I didn't have to go to the Himalayas. I didn't have to go.
It's just like, just go to Google.
Yeah, just go to Google, and it worked,
It worked.
But that's the other thing, like, a lot of the life-changing, like life direction moments in my life have been things that aren't necessarily like these huge conscious choices. There haven't been these major epiphanies. They've been little trickles of just listening to my inner guidance or inner nudges to go towards a certain direction, and that I've listened to, and that has led to these changes. I've never had this huge epiphany of anything that some people get. I went to India waiting to be like, hit with some kind of, and not that it wasn't soul changing or spiritually changing, it definitely was, but I was like waiting for this epiphany. And then, I went to Laos and Cambodia and Vietnam and Thailand and all these countries waiting for this epiphany. And life doesn't necessarily work that way. Just be open to receiving all the little nudges or little whispers that you hear and get, and keep working towards that. And I think that's when you get to know yourself, and also be curious, and also have the courage to listen to the voices and listen to the messages you're receiving.
Oh, that's such a big thing, isn't it? Because we don't often, I certainly haven't had that lightning bolt moment either. I haven't sat in meditation and somehow, I've certainly had little seeds of ideas, but it's not like I've suddenly sat there and been like, enlightenment. Now I know what it's all about. Yeah.
I haven't got that one yet either.
I haven't got that one yet. But those tiny little things that you take, I love what you said about having the courage really to take action on them, to just to keep moving forward and to keep making those steps. And somehow we find that not necessarily a destination, but it takes us to the next step of our journey.
It definitely does. And I think things aren't always super clear, and we don't always know if we're making the right decision, but you have to have the courage to listen and to not necessarily make sense of it. If there's something within you that's telling you, hey, this isn't right, or this is right, or whatever it is, they have to be your inner compass, but you have to be able to connect to that part of you. And I think a lot of us are disconnected from that part of us. And that's kind of why I do what I do as well, to reconnect the mind and body and the person to who they are, and to connecting back to that inner voice, and learning to trust themselves, and you can only do that by sometimes making mistakes. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think trust is a really big thing, and it's actually something that I have to work with a lot of my clients on around, is actually just beginning to actually trust themselves and to be able to make those decisions. And sometimes things will go the way they want, and sometimes they won't, but not letting that stop them making those move forwards, because we learn, or maybe it helps us to pivot in a slightly different way that we wouldn't have got to that next decision if we hadn't made the first one.
But 100%.
Actually just have to keep moving.
You just, that's it. And, discerning between what's your voice and what's other people's voice within you, And that's a big one too. Like, is that me saying that? Or does that sound a lot like what my dad used to say? Or does that sound a lot like what my boss says? Or, is it your voice, and is it your belief?
Yeah. That's a big one, isn't it? Just keeping on coming back and going, yeah, is this me or someone else? When we're surrounded by so many different energies and opinions and media, just keeping on coming back and just having that self-inquiry.
Yeah, definitely. And giving yourself time and those moments to inquire with yourself, because I think a lot of us don't actually allow ourselves or have, I guess, make that a priority to connect with ourselves every day. And I definitely do, and it's something that I need to do in order to feel that I am living in this life and not just existing within it.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. Meditation all the way on that front.
I am a big advocate for meditation. I know that some people disagree with that and don't think that it's for everyone and things like that. But it's hard for me. I've got a bit of a biased opinion towards it because it changed my life immensely.
Oh, the same for me. And look, all things aren't meant for everyone, but just having that time to just be quiet and just listen to that inner voice for a little while every day makes a significant difference, I believe. Perhaps they find it in slightly different ways if meditation is not for them.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to ask a little bit about Enlightened, because you're a tour de force. I've witnessed your business grow and thrive, and I've also really noticed your drive. So I'd love to know a little bit more about your passion for Enlightened and what drives that passion, although I think you've already answered that, but I'd just love to hear in your own words again.
Yeah, I must admit, a lot of people have said this to me before, that I'm very driven and very determined when it comes to the work that I do and I guess the business that I'm creating. And for me, I look at it as just it's hard to explain, but it's an extension of self. It's an extension of who I am, an extension of my purpose of what I was placed here to do. And for me, it's not work. It really is an honor and a privilege to create a space that's so needed. And I guess I'm creating a space that I feel that I needed at a certain point in time. And maybe, I'm wanting to create that safety, and where people are, welcome to be who they are, no matter what that is in this space, and love for who they are unconditionally. We're not a traditional business. There's not anything traditional about it, really, from the way it looks to the way that it's from the moment you walk in. It's a unique place to be, and we've just tried to create, I guess, an epitome of energetics for people to feel like home, and bring themselves home to themselves. So it's definitely growing. It's growing more and more every day, because that just shows the need for it. Just shows how people are yearning for a place to be who they are and to be accepted, and to feel like they can express who they really are in a way that's not judged. And I think that's really the crux of the business, is that safety and permission, and the rest of the stuff is I guess the icing on the cake.
Yeah. And you feel it the minute you walk into the doors of Enlightened. I remember the first time I came for a community. There was just
that's
so many
right.
people, and it was just such a really expansive experience. It was a beautiful experience of what you created. But even when I worked there, and also if I came in to see you as a client as well, just the minute you walk through those doors, it's like you feel held, and it's so beautiful. You've created such a beautiful atmosphere and space, and even the people that you hire within that space as well to greet you at the door. The minute you walk in, you just feel so at ease. I think you that and comfortable and safety, as you said, which is so important, creating that space for people to be there without feeling judged, being able to share who they are.
Yeah, and just some people, when they're coming for their first appointments, or even when they're going through something that's super challenging at the time, there's a lot of anxiety, usually leading up to the appointment. So for us, we just wanted to create a space that people just, wanted to go to. And we have done that. We've got a beautiful community. We've got people who come into the clinic all the time who don't even have appointments, who just sit downstairs, or I find them in my kitchen, you know.
I think I've done that.
Yeah, we've all done it, you know. And there's people, oh, you're down here, you know, and it's beautiful. It's a community. And, you know, I wanted people to feel like they could come whenever they needed to come, and not just when they had an appointment. You know, what a privilege to have that space where people feel like they can go there and you know, be with themselves and be supported by people that they trust when they need that. And for me, that's why I do what I do. And we have a whole bunch of different clients, you know, men, women, different ages, different backgrounds. It's very vast. And even with the practitioners that work in the space, they all do different things. But one thing is that we all have a passion to help others and to really, you know, have fun as well. We all have a bit of fun in the clinic too, but just create a space of lightness, connection, and safety, I suppose.
I've always felt that as well when I've come in. I've always seemed to be laughing when I leave,
Yeah.
or laughing when I come in. Kind of real mixture of kind of joy, but also getting down to business when we need to.
Yeah. So we really, you know, we just have a beautiful vibe. I'm very blessed. The people that work in the clinic and the clients that we have, I can't complain for one instant.
So before we finish up, Sarah, I'd love to know if there's one tip that you could leave the listeners with for their own inner healing journey, something that they could actually do even today, just something small that could help them. What would you like to leave them with?
Again, probably a bit biased, but try and find your local network spinal chiropractor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's been life-changing. I don't know if I would have got through what I've got through in my life in the way that I did, and integrated it as well as I did without network spinal. What I do and what you see in my Instagram is a little bit different to what traditional network spinal is. It's something that I call spinal energetics, which is a course that I'm releasing soon, but it's basically working with purely the energetic field. But I started with network spinal, and I think if no matter where you are, Google your network spinal chiropractor and give it a go, and let yourself be connected back into your body again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I highly recommend you and your practitioners that I know you've got a few people there at Enlightened, both in Callista and Armidale, that you if you're not available as well.
Yes.
So everyone, go to Sarah if you're in.
We would love to see you.
Yeah. And actually, you just mentioned then, I just wanted to ask you what you've got coming up. I know I'm on the wait list for an energy course that you're running, but I'd love to hear more about what you've got coming up and anything you'd love the listeners to know. I'm going to put all your details in the show notes, but in terms of what you've got coming up, and I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so we've got Spinal Energetics coming up, which is a course to learn the work that I do, which is really exciting. The world's really wanting this kind of practice now. So we're releasing that soon. We're in the pipeline of that. It's both face-to-face or purely online. So depending on where you are, whether you're in Melbourne or whether you have the ability to travel to Melbourne, or whether you're anywhere in the world, you'll be able to learn this technique, which is, you know, really, really exciting. We've been doing a lot of events this year. So I've been going around to different yoga studios, hosting these energetic events, you know, combined with sound bars and things like that, where we've had over, you know, 60, 70 people in the room. It's been incredible. So my goal is to go around a little bit more this year or next year, traveling and doing some, you know, collaborative things. I've got one coming up, combining breath work and energetic work as well. They both sold out within 2 days. So it's definitely something that people are wanting to experience. But hopefully we'll be doing some pop-ups around Australia, doing a tour. And so no matter where you are, hopefully we can see you and you can facilitate this work. So hopefully doing some more traveling now that COVID is settled down for the minute.
Well, I hope you come up to Sydney. I'd love to come to one of your events if you do it up here.
Yeah, I want to. So if anyone knows of any great studios or yoga studios or meditation studios that would be interested in collaborating with me and hosting a space there for me, please let me know. Otherwise, yeah, I'll be reaching out soon to some individuals that I think, complement the work well. And hopefully, yeah, do a little bit of a traveling tour.
How amazing. I
Mm,
love it.
mm.
Well, Sarah Jane, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's just been incredible. You've shared so much knowledge, and I really appreciate you too, as well, sharing of yourself and some of your own personal journey.
Yeah.
It's really been such a pleasure to have you here, and an honor as well to have you here. And I'm sure the listeners are going to get so much out of this talk.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, gorgeous.